Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today is Tuesday, March 26th, 2024, and this is the special governing board meeting for the Litchfield Elementary School District Governing Board. I hereby call this meeting to order. We are going to begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you could please stand and join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We are going to take a moment of silent reflection. Okay, we are going to move on to the next section of the agenda, which is public comment. We don't have any tonight, correct? Awesome. We're just going to move right along then to the adoption of the agenda and approval of consent agenda. I'll go through and see if anybody has anything they would like to pull from the consent agenda. Ms. Moran?
I would like to pull item 5.5, classified personnel employment.
Ms. Clymer?
No, I don't have anything to pull. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to pull item 5.6. And with that, if someone would like to make a motion.
I will move to approve the consent agenda as presented with the exception of item 5.5 and 5.6.
I'll second.
Having a motion from Ms. Moran and a second from Ms. Clymer, I'll call for the vote. Ms. Moran?
Yay.
Ms. Clymer?
Yay.
I'm also a yay. The motion passes. We will start with item 5.5.
As my usual, there is one of our higher level positions on agenda item 5.5. So I like to always highlight that when we have folks moving into director and up. So tell me more about the process and who we've got filling that position, please.
Thank you, Ms. Moran, for giving us a chance to highlight just an awesome person this evening, one that has given a lot of time and energy to our district. And I think Mr. Vaughn, CFO, will share some insight for us on the who and the how, the why, and the what and everything. So thank you.
Yeah, we are very excited to bring forward Brittany Carter for potential approval as our next director of finance. Brittany has been an instrumental part of our finance team for the past 11 years, serving in various functions. From payroll and grants to our interim director of finance for most of this fiscal year. So we're very excited to give this opportunity for her to continue her work and advancement with us. The process was fairly robust. We had 11 applicants. We brought in 4 for interviews. We had a panel that included both finance staff and other stakeholders in the district. Brittany was the unanimous choice amongst all of the panel. And so we're very excited to, pending governing board approval, invite her into that next step in her career with us.
Excellent. I'd love to see people move up and expand their skills and us to be able to give them the opportunity to do that. So no other questions.
Ms. Clymer, did you have any questions?
No other questions.
I don't have any questions either. So if someone would like to make a motion.
I will move to approve agenda item 5.5 as presented.
I'll second.
Having a motion from Ms. Moran and a second from Ms. Clymer, I'll call for the vote. Ms. Moran?
Yay.
Ms. Clymer?
Yay.
I'm also a yay. Motion passes. Congratulations on your new.
Congratulations, Ms. Carter. I'm pretty sure we're still getting the best end of this deal, but congratulations.
Okay, we're going to move on to item 5.6, and I'm going to turn the conversation over to Dr. Davidson.
Thank you, President Zeidema. And just so the record can reflect, I think this will be now 6.2 for the classified personnel resignation piece, just based on the move, but I just wanted to highlight that. So thank you both for pulling those agenda items. This one, President Zaidama, involves a staff member that we had serving in custodial supervisor role. The current agenda item states that he is going to be the reason for leaving would be termination, but we received some information today from him and we wanted the record to reflect resignation. And so I just wanted to have that done appropriately tonight with the board when at the vote, that it just simply is an accurate reflection of his resignation. So thank you.
Ms. Moran, did you have any questions?
No, I do not.
Ms. Clymer, did you have any questions?
No questions, but thank you for the clarification.
I only have the question of how we need to make this motion to do it correctly. That would be the only thing, since we're not talking about individuals.
President Zaidama, the motion should read motion to approve the classified personnel resignation, retirement, and termination with the change to employee, and I believe the employee is Edward Carter, from termination to resignation.
Okay.
And I'll make sure I get that typed in correctly.
Okay, perfect.
Can I just say so moved?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, you can.
Okay, thank you.
I will second that motion.
Having a motion from Ms. Moran and a second from Ms. Clymer, I'll call for the vote. Ms. Moran,
Yay.
Ms. Clymer,
Yay.
I'm also a yay. The motion passes. Okay, we are going to move on to the next section of the agenda, which is our action items. We are going to talk about the approval of 24-25 medical, dental, vision, life, and employee appreciation plan. And this is going to be by CFO Vaughn.
Wonderful IT team. Can we get the presentation up? Thank you. Madam President, members of the governing board, Superintendent Davidson, colleagues and community, thank you for joining us tonight to consider approval for the district's benefits for the 2024-2025 school year. We were able to implement the benefit strategy we've previously discussed, where the high deductible healthcare plan will remain free for our employees by reducing the HSA contribution. The change in this year's benefits are expected to be cost neutral to the district's budget. By approving the benefits tonight, this allows employees to know what their raise will be prior to contracts being due back and what their benefits package will be. So their total compensation. This presentation aligns with the district's strategic goals to increase stakeholder knowledge and understanding of school funding, and is part of our work to maintain high retention rates of employees. We have been in negotiation with ASBATE, who provides our medical insurance, on the renewal for our 2024-2025 school year. The negotiation has been based around our claim experience this past year, as well as the pool as a whole. Both are driving the district's renewal to have a larger increase than in prior years. We are not proposing any plan changes from the plans we're offering this year. However, there are some plan changes that are being driven by ASBATE themselves or federal law changes. This includes increasing the individual and family deductible to $1,600 and $3,200 respectively on the high deductible healthcare plan, which aligns with the updated IRS requirements for high deductible healthcare plans. Our employees will enjoy next year a $200 flat copay on specialty prescriptions after deductible, and have the option of either Costco or Kroger pharmacies for extended 90-day supplies. Previously, they'd only had Kroger available as an option. During the renewal process, ASBATE reviews the utilization of the plans and the amount the district pays for insurance as part of the analysis to gauge an appropriate renewal. For the plan year they reviewed, the plan saw a 103% loss ratio, which means that ASBATE paid out 3% more for medical claims than what the district paid for the insurance. When we look at this year's loss ratio compared to last year's loss ratio, you can see we're not trending in the right direction. Costs have been up more so than our premiums were raised last year. This has been driven by a number of factors, including an increase in high-cost claims, as well as overall increases in almost all categories of the medical insurance claims. It's also important to note that the loss ratio does not take into account administrative costs of managing the claims, only the true medical costs. This means that ASBATE's costs to insure Litchfield were much higher than what we paid for their services this past year. As a result, our medical renewal came back as a 10.8% increase over last year. We are continuing a strategy to maintain a free plan for employees, but otherwise minimize the costs absorbed by the district as previously discussed. The next several slides show the details of the district's costs and employee costs for various options under our benefits plan for next year. This slide shows the high deductible healthcare plan remains free for employees with a $552 contribution to the HSA plan. This slide shows the Classic Gold plan available to all employees. As a reminder, this plan is supported by the district to the same amount as the high deductible healthcare plan, and employees pay the difference if electing the plan. The Copay Gold plan is our grandfathered medical plan, which can only be elected by employees who are currently on it. About 10% of our insured employees select this plan. The district did not experience a rate increase with employee basic life insurance offered to employees. The district will continue to pay for $15,000 of life insurance for all employees who elect it. The district also did not experience a rate increase on our dental plan. The district will continue to support free dental insurance for all employees working at least 40 hours per week. As previously discussed during our previous budget discussions, the district will offer employees who work under 40 hours per week the opportunity to elect dental benefits at their own costs. That was based on some employee feedback we'd received. Similar to dental insurance, we will be opening up visions insurance to employees or to all employees at their own cost. We also did not receive a rate increase to vision this year. Litchfield also offers insurance to our retirees at 100% cost to the previous employee. Their medical experiences are not included with the districts when our medical renewal is set. They have a separate renewal and they're considered their own insurance group, but that has no cost to the district because it's entirely paid for by the retiree who elects it. We would also recommend continuing the employee appreciation benefit from non-M&O funds structured the same as it presently is. Early informal feedback is that the program is significantly appreciated by our supervisors who previously were supporting much of this work with their own personal funds without support from the district. So far this year, we've seen most of the spending split between district branded items or shirts and food for staff appreciation events put on by our supervisors. At this time, we're available to answer any questions you might have.
Ms. Moran?
I don't have any questions, but I have a couple of comments. I'm pleased to see that the increase still allows us to provide a non-cost option. We've obviously seen that HSA contribution decrease over the years as the cost of the insurance itself has increased. So I don't know how many years we have left on that. But I think that's just something to highlight for folks to know that at some point there may not be an additional HSA contribution that we're able to contribute. I think that's highlighted when you look at the classic gold plan or the copay gold plan, but the classics, I think a more popular plan to look at, was it 3 years ago that we didn't have employees pay any of that? And now the employee annual cost is $1,218. So that employee annual cost has been the increase that has happened over the last 3 years. And if we as a district were absorbing that, what that means is that it has to come from somewhere. So likely we would not be able to give salary increases at the way that we have been able to give the salary increases. And as we discussed as a board previously, not everyone utilizes our medical insurance coverage. So that seems like the most fair way to go about that. So again, just wanted to comment on those trends. And I know every year is different, so we have to wait until they come back with their rate increases to know what this is going to look like. But I think this is a good balance between offering what we can afford and making sure that there is something that is a zero cost actual option for our employees.
Ms. Clymer?
Just one question. Remind me, the employee appreciation benefit of $50 per employee, who is responsible for allocating those funds? Is that just the supervisor per department or principal per campus or?
Yeah, so how that has worked this year and how I would imagine us continuing it is I worked with HR, and in our system, every employee is assigned a supervisor, right? And so what we do is we pull a report of by supervisor how many employees there are, and then we set a budget allocation to that supervisor for employee appreciation activity.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So my only question is, correct me if I'm wrong, I thought that we paid for the employee thing last year with ESSER funds. Am I wrong on that?
That was initially the plan. ADE didn't end up approving it as part of ESSER. There's a little bit of a disagreement in the allowability. And so we have moved it to other non-M&O funds. But yes, that was initially the plan.
Then never mind my follow-up question. And I remember us discussing that now that you said that. So I don't have any other questions. If someone would like to make a motion.
I move to approve the 24-25 medical, dental, life, vision insurance and employee appreciation plan as presented.
I will second.
Having a motion from Ms. Clymer and a second from Ms. Moran, I will call for the vote. Ms. Moran?
Yay.
Ms. Clymer?
Yay.
I'm also a yay. Motion passes. Okay, we are going to move on to the next items on the agenda. We're going to start with the energy audit information, and this is going to be by Executive Director Stone.
Good evening, President Zaidama, governing board members, Dr. Davidson, cabinet and guests, people online. Tonight, myself and a few guests are going to present to you some information that we've collected around energy savings project. And as we get started, let me introduce those guests. We have two from Verigy. We have Shannon Robke, the K-12 executive leader there, and then principal executive Randy Falconer. Really, the strategy behind all this is what they do, and want to make sure we provide the right information. And then we're thankful for Jim Gill, lawyer from Gus Rosenfeld, to join us as well, in case we have any questions there, right? The savings project would allow Litchfield to become a more efficient organization in our overall utilization of energy, right? A project like this could include improvements in our building lighting inside and out. It could replace HVAC units, as we know from an audit we did last spring that we have over 500 units that are 15 years old. It could include installation of solar panels, improve our facilities technology usage so we can manage our systems together and turn lights off at a certain time, or stadium lights for the baseball field on. It would manage those systems, and it would bring forth water efficiency fixtures and allow us to improve the buildings, the building envelopes themselves across the district, right? And so we partnered with Verigy to kind of collect this information. They are the only Are you pushing it too? No? Okay. They are the only self-performing K-12 energy service company, and they're out here in the Valley. And so it's great that we have this could have this local partnership with them. And of course, then there's compliance with ARS 15-213.01 that guides the work that they do across the Valley with other school districts or municipalities. With it, we could be eligible for federal funding under the Inflation Reduction Act that would allow us to secure some investment tax credits in the 24-25 year. Of course, with the strategic plan alignment, it covers being fiscally responsible. It provides a service to our community, and our students are part of this. And we'll kind of go through some of those things throughout the presentation, right? We talk about how do we provide a value to our students and staff. And you can see that LED lighting can enhance the learning environment. Dimmable lights, adjustable across the front of the room to the back of the room, would allow our teachers with their projectors to dim the front and not the back and still be able to take decent notes. If you've been in the rooms observing, sometimes when the lights are off and it's just the TV, it's hard for kids to see or do work along the way. Of course, new HVAC equipment. We know what June, July, August looks like. And this year alone, 9 to 10 units down within the first 3 weeks. And some of that's just due to the age of the equipment. And so this could be part of the plan to move forward. It then ties into the academic side of our students' world. STEM learning opportunities with 24/7 real-time monitoring of solar production, if that was part of the plan. Of course, teachers could tie in student engagement activities with different types of races, energy reduction competitions, a lot of opportunities that just don't take care of the utility side of it, right? Of course, there's a cost that comes with it, and then there's savings, and to blend them together, we know we spend over $3 million a year on utilities. Of course, it's about $2.12 a square foot. Obviously, that's not including water. You could see the annual utility spend from currently kind of looking at all the numbers together. And then, of course, the reduction with these types of work being done could save us up to or about $1.3 million. It then addresses the facility and maintenance needs that we saw from the Bureau Veritas report, and I'll connect those things for us here in a second with some of their slides from April last year, right? The building integration piece is really where we get all of these pieces. I'm going to refer to my notes because it's very blurry on here. It's got the facilities, right? We talk about weatherization of buildings, doors, windows, those things. Of course, HVAC, lighting, the air conditioning heating piece component together, plumbing and all of that. And then this is the slide from Bureau Veritas that showed the 20-year improvements needed across Litchfield. It was, roughly $180 million. And connecting the two services or their recommendation and the service that Verigy could provide us allows us to not have to use bond dollars, which is what is allotted for some of this maintenance, because it would come out of a different type of fund, right? And we'll kind of look at that as well here. But knowing the HVAC, the plumbing, the electrical, all of that could be done and allow our bond dollars to go further than just the first 5 years, right? We could really get deep into it. Of course, solar provides the biggest federal rebate. Currently with the rebate, it's about 30%. And then that would be based off of if we brought together a scope of work that brought solar to every site. That's kind of where this dollar amount comes from, right? Here's the whole picture, and if we scaled back, it would be less. But this is, of course, good through the 24 year. It could go through the 25. We just can't make that prediction right now. We know it comes, the regulations that come with it. They have to meet a certain goal, right? And I'll allow them to kind of talk about what that looks like. I don't want to say goal, excuse me, a savings percentage. They're not going to come up here and say, oh, we're going to save you 75% if we're not going to save 75%. So they're looking at what can we save. And then that allows us to talk about neutral cost through all of this, through the loan and the savings. How do we make that all work? And then, of course, validation by an independent third party is the biggest piece that we look at it. How are we protecting Litchfield from making a really good investment? And so that will be the work done along the side in parallel as we decide what is the scope of work that Verigy could do for us and the numbers that they provide for us, because they've done the audit, right, as they fine-tune to get down as close as possible to what that savings was look like. We'll bring that forward when we have it, but we want that third party to kind of walk alongside us to go, yeah, this is all verifiable. It's gonna work out. We know in the past that some of the solar plans in districts over a decade ago didn't turn out so well. It's changed a lot, and so that brings a little bit more comfortable position with this for us. You can see the financial impact. A complete project across our district with all of those components included could be up to $42 million. The finance term of the loan that we would work through, not utilizing taxpayer dollars to do the work. You could see what the lifetime savings could be once we were through it all. The type of work to be done, obviously it takes some time. It wouldn't happen on day one, but it would be basically an 18-month plan of completion. So then what we look at is kind of the next steps, right? Continuing to drill down the final project recommendations, partner with that third-party vendor to ensure the service and benefits, long-term benefits are here for LASD, bring forth the final recommendations for the scope of work, and then based upon if we agree that that's the right thing to do, move forward through that process. So before we end and go to questions, I'll have them come up real quick and kind of talk a little more in detail about the cost neutral, the savings, and what that looks like.
Hi there. Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Davidson, and Council Eric. Thank you so much for having us tonight. My name is Shannon Repke. This is Randy Falconer. We've been with the company for quite a long time. Randy is, I don't know, I don't want to age him, but he's been around the block a time or two with this type of performance contracting with energy savings. So we're pleased to be here and helping to engage on the engineering side, what this could look like for your district. Every district is different. Savings are different. Utility utilization is different. So it has to be built just depending on your current financials with your utility spend. And so what we looked at was the need of the district, facilities, operations, student learning, and finances to come to a cost neutral project in order to bring up a project that could benefit up to 42 million without having to go out for a bond. So we'll kind of bridge there if you want to talk about the other components.
Yeah. I mean, this is a pretty simple vehicle. I mean, we're literally analyzing your buildings, the condition, where your needs are, and your utility spend. And the statute has the design that we can take the savings and pay for the project. So, and that's probably the simplest explanation that you can have on it. The statute also requires that we guarantee it. It also requires that we get it third-party verified. Also requires that you have legal counsel on your side. And of course, any financial institution also kind of double checks everything. So these are meant to be conservative. When we guarantee it, that means if you missed, like if I told you you're going to save $1.3 million 1 year and you saved $1.1 million, that would mean that we would have to write you a $200,000 check. So when we do these, we actually only use a percentage of the savings that we find because we like to have a cushion. Everybody's much happier when you save 20% more than having a miss. So the vehicle itself is pretty simplistic. Shannon's right. They're all unique, and it really has a lot to do with need. Your team here does a really good job on keeping your equipment up. But you know, it's Arizona. No one has enough money to replace the things that really need to be replaced. So this is a statute was designed and it was actually revised twice, I think now, Jim, right? It's written with the school in mind. So we have to adhere to everything. It's not us doing any of it. So it's a good vehicle for you guys. We will keep your equipment up, have better learning spaces, good for your students, good for your staff, and provide you a way to do that without utilizing bond money. Now, you can utilize bond money. There's nothing wrong with using it. But typically, I like the statement that you made, Eric, stretching your bond dollar, that's a big thing here in Arizona. A lot of times, a lot of school districts come to us and they're like, we need $10 million with mechanical. We only have $5 million. And so in that case, you're stretching your bond dollars because we can take the energy that's created, the savings, and pair it with that, and then it stretches it. So your 5 million is getting you $10 million worth of work. So there's a lot of different unique ways to combine the things that we do with these. The best way that we like to do them is holistically, which is kind of how we've looked at your district. What are all the possibilities that lie out there? Are there federal funds that we can bring to the picture, which right now there are good federal funds. We know that this year is good. We know that next year is good because, of course, Washington, D.C. doesn't turn very fast. But, you know, we don't know after that, right? It all depends on what happens in elections.
I'll just add to that as well, because Mr. Stone had asked me this question before. In addition to the federal incentives for the solar and renewable side of things, there are rebates by the utility companies as well that we manage for you guys on the paperwork side of things, but those checks go directly from the utility companies back to the school district. I think for Cartwright, we were up at 700,000 in rebates that they had received just for going LED and installing a lot of mechanical equipment. So our goal is really just to find you those extra dollars, right? And after hearing some presentation before, we want to see where we can find you those extra dollars too. Do you mind if I go back? Do I just, okay. Just wanted to touch on this a little bit further on just the regulations side. And that's why, you know, of course, Jim is here as your legal counsel as well. We are required to guarantee that the savings will allow you to meet your payments on an annual basis by Arizona statute. And then we have to adhere on the federal regulation side, a measurement and verifications report that it's not nationally, it's internationally recognized on that report that we have to adhere to those specifications too, and produce that reconciliation report annually for you all as well. So there's a lot of checks and balances on these, and it was really created as a funding vehicle for school districts without risk to the school district, putting the risk on somebody else. So, you know, this isn't new. Performance contracting has been around for 20 years, I think, and it exists in every state as well. So I just wanted to touch on that because I know it can get kind of confusing.
Yeah, one of the, well, just kind of back up here on the M&V, the monitoring and verification. You guys are getting a technology system that integrates, as we were kind of speaking to before. You probably have 60 different platforms here that don't talk to each other. So it integrates, but what it also does is it also watches the load on the grid and it watches your meters. So we actually have an every 15-minute synopsis that you guys see, that we see, that's in the technology that students can see as well, that are constantly telling us, like, how is this meter doing today compared to yesterday? How is it doing compared to last year? If we have one that's underperforming or overperforming, those are both good spots, right? No one wants to wait to the end of the year to figure out if we had a problem. We want to find it right now. But a lot of times what I've found is that when we're overachieving in certain areas, it's like, okay, what's going on different here that we engineered out and we didn't see was going to take effect. And a lot of times we learn a lot of things from the staff in the school districts. As they learn how to work with the system, they start changing stuff in it. And they're like, hey, what if we tried this? What if we tried that? And it's actually a good way for us to gain knowledge that we absolutely copycat and take to other school districts. But that system does a really good job of providing that transparency so we can see it all the time, and so can you. Yeah. Questions? Statements?
Ms. Moran?
So my question, which might not really have an answer, but if you have an answer, please let me know. Our state government it's not known for doing things that are helpful to public schools. So this sounds too good to be true. And there's a skeptical part of me that thinks, what's the catch? I have read the statute. I understand how you're really guaranteeing these funds, but it just doesn't seem to make sense with the overall vibe that we get with public school funding. So do you have any additional insight on that piece of it or the history?
Well, I agree, right? It's not the norm for schools. I don't know that it's anything beneficial that anybody handed you. It's literally math. Like, we can reduce utility consumption, and that there gives you funds that you can utilize to keep it budget neutral. So really the states kind of stepped in and they just said, these are the rules you have to play with, right? We're going to set these things. And in most states, there's a few that have a little bit, but in Arizona, it's very much written for school districts. They revised it in 2012. They just revised it again in 2018. But the rules that we have to play by are definitely on your side of the fence. And the reason being is because this state is very underfunded. And in more underfunded states, the rules are a little tighter, right? So we're a little bit more conservative. But it's designed really just to kind of make it so that you don't have to worry about the risk. It gets placed elsewhere, and no one's really doing anything for you. All right. This is just, it's money you're already spending, and it's just math to reduce it and utilize it.
Yeah, I mean, that part definitely makes sense to me, that if we're going to have this cost savings, that cost savings could be utilized to pay for the projects, as
Right.
opposed to us having to get the public's approval for a bond to then utilize those savings. And I'm assuming, your company has a percentage of that, piece of the savings, and that's how obviously you're making money from that. So that part makes sense to me. Can you just remind me what some of the other districts in Maricopa County are that you currently work with, or that you have worked with in, let's say, the last 5 years?
Yeah. You guys have time for 80 or so? No, we've been in this state for 30 years doing performance contracting. For 20. We've worked with just over 80 school districts in the states and in Arizona. More recently on the elementary school district side, Cartwright, Creighton, Alhambra. We have very, very long-lasting relationships with Pendergast Elementary School. We kind of hit all corners of Arizona, so we're in the rural side as well as the urban side. Very close-knit with Isaac School District, Elementary School District, and then we work a lot with Tullison Union, J.O. Combs Unified School District, and out there they have a really hard time passing bonds, and so it gets a little tricky. That's just to name a few. I kind of leaned on the
Florence, Scottsdale.
Yep,
It would
Florence,
be
Scottsdale.
unlikely that you would ask somebody, what are there, 200 and some districts here?
Mhm.
Right? So we also do direct work, like if somebody just wanted mechanical done outside of this vehicle, but you would have a hard time like meeting somebody who we have not done work at their school in some form or fashion. But the urban districts that are surrounding you, the majority of them we have, and Shannon listed those off. And if you wanted, I could absolutely provide a list of here's the schools we did business with.
Yeah, no, I don't need a comprehensive list. That's fine. I just
Okay.
wanted to highlight that for,
Yeah.
just to
Yep.
make sure that we're proving that, we're working with someone who's tried and true. Because as I said, this seems too good to be true.
Right.
It does make sense to me why this would be in place. And so I'm really happy that we are thinking outside the box. We haven't done anything specifically like this before. And I'm glad that we're looking for different ways for us to get the work done that we need to get done without going back out and asking the public to fund more money that we just asked them to fund. So I really like that piece of it. And then I'm going to add a small personal note on slide 5. One of the comments that you made, which is what is best for students and staff. The comment was STEM learning opportunities with 24/7 real-time monitoring of solar production for K-12 curriculum. I'm married to a 50-year-old computer engineer, and we have solar on our home, and he spends an inordinate amount of time monitoring the app that we have for solar production. So this is a real life application that definitely is STEM based that I think the kids would think is pretty cool. So
Speaker.
There you go.
I think that's great.
Just to add to that as well, and thank you for noting that, we actually have a science teacher through Arizona standards developed curriculum for the students to put these systems in real practice, step 1 through 10 kind of deal, and come up with the answer. So it can get pretty fun.
Well,
Yeah,
and we
that's
and we realize educators, right? I mean, how many curriculums do you guys get hit with? A lot of times they're like, no more curriculum. So it's kind of cool that you can jump in and out based on the curriculum you have, right? Math, science, whatever the case may be. So it's a nice system because of that. So you don't have to monitor it as much as your husband's doing, but yeah, you can kind of get involved because it goes in the weeds. It'll go as deep as you want to go. So you can start looking at information that's kind of like going through TikTok, and next thing you know, it's an hour later kind of thing.
Yeah,
So yeah.
I think that's great. So that's all my questions. Thank you.
Ms. Clymer?
Yeah, it's no surprise that Kim and I would pick out almost the exact same things to ask questions on, but I do agree with slide 5. I mean, I think as educators and the previous comment of, we don't get a lot of handouts, right, in the state specifically. So taking something that we already need and figuring out a way to utilize that to benefit our students, pretty awesome. So, looking at this table over here to figure out how to actually put that into action, because I think there's probably a couple of handfuls of teachers, et cetera, that would love to be a part of that project work. In terms of the too good to be true, I get it. I mean, that, you can read all the information. Sometimes you just got to go with it because, we don't get a lot of too good to be true. So we'll latch on to this one. My question though is, as a 20-year program, incentives, rebates, all of that stuff changes over time, as your point, whether it's the political climate or financial climate, whatever that is. So how does that work, right? We're signing on the dotted line today. 5 years from now, something changes. What does that financially look like for us? What is our risk tolerance? It's usually pretty low. So how does that work?
Yeah. So your rebates and incentives are all booked out at the beginning of the job. Like we put markers on all of them. Those are programs that exist for a one-time payout, like a utility rebate, IRA funds. As each solar array is done, you put in for it. It's in the tax code. So it's not like we ran out of money thing that comes around. The only thing that really moves over long-term is your kilowatt hour cost, right? Any utility costs, they move. And so as we all know, they go down dramatically every year, like never. So that's really
like our insurance benefit that you just were listening to.
Exactly. So that's kind of probably the easiest part of equation to have move, right? So all we have to do is we look at a CPI index for the last 20 years, so we can start getting kind of a baseline on what we think, and then we're monitoring off of that. I know the comment was earlier, I think on kind of sounded like annual energy savings would be how we got paid sort of thing. That's what pays for the project. We're construction people. So it's a normal construction project. We put it together. As we get X% completed, your guys check it off, make sure it's done. It goes into the escrow fund person, and then they cut a check until we're complete. So it's literally just a construction project for us. It's just one that we now have to be married to for the next 20 years to stay on top of.
Okay. I think this question is for Executive Director Stone. On slide 8, we had the 20-year sort of forecast that it was either last year or maybe 2 years ago. I don't remember when this was developed, but we've seen this a couple of times before. So I understand, obviously, this helps us with some of these costs because we're shifting what we have to do from a bond and now into this program, which I think is great. Does it also allow us to do any of these things faster, like on a more accelerated timeline? Because now we have additional dollars, right? I mean, some of these immediate needs we can't even get to, right? Because we don't have either the time or the money. So by moving these to a different column, did that allow us to accelerate any of the immediate projects that we know we don't always get to immediately?
Yeah, so I'll actually take that. So yes, it would speed up the process. And the reason being is if you think about how our bond program is structured, it's a $100 million bond that we plan to sell in three goes to the market, if you will. And to capture the tax rate that we said that we would try to target, we can only sell so much of that bond at once. And because of our timeline of the new school, that means the first couple of sales are predominantly or exclusively, depending on if you're talking about the first or second, are going to go towards funding new school construction. So by introducing this other funding mechanism, it does allow that to go more in parallel with the new school construction, as opposed to us having to wait for that third and final sale to then have funding to do some of those projects, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that answered it. Thank you.
You all got all my questions. But all I could think of is, as a person who also has solar, I mean, we have that same thing of a guarantee, right? We're going to make sure that you get this minimum amount of savings. And so for me, that part makes the most sense. So I think this sounds great. I agree with the too good to be true. And we're in public schools and we see how we get beat up all the time. And, you know, the government's not just handing us money here ever. So I'm excited to see how this will play out and work out in our favor in this district.
So
Thank
if
you
we
very much for the
finalize,
information.
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying thank you very much for the information.
Sure. We will drill down kind of what that scope of work looks like to bring real dollar amounts and savings amounts to in the near future to allow us to decide if we're going to move forward on this or not. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you guys for coming and sharing this information. We are going to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the Auditor General School District Spending Analysis for fiscal year 22-23. And this is going to be by CFO Vaughn.
Madam President, members of the governing board, Superintendent Davidson, colleagues and community, thank you for joining me tonight to discuss the school district spending report published by the Arizona Auditor General's office. This presentation aligns with the district's strategic goal to increase stakeholder knowledge and understanding of school funding. This report, published by the Auditor General, is meant to meet the requirements for their office to monitor the percentage of each dollar spent in the classroom by Arizona school districts. The report was initially released on March 1st and is available on the Auditor General's website for all districts. Tonight, we'll be walking through the report. The report looks at spending of school districts and breaks down that spending into several different categories. The highest level of these categories are operational spending and non-operational spending. Operational spending is your day-to-day spending and are coded in our accounting system and in the data shared with the Auditor General's office to allow for comparison across districts all around the nation. Operational spending can be further broken down into classroom and non-classroom spending. Classroom spending by the Auditor General's definition includes instructional, student support, and instructional support expenses. Instruction is primarily your teachers and instructional aides, as well as instructional supplies and athletics. Those expenses touching primarily instruction of students. Student support is focused on additional services students need to be successful and can include counselors, special education related service providers such as speech pathologists, nurses, and attendance services, to name just a few broad categories of spending considered student support. Instructional supports are focused on supporting the teachers and instructional personnel. They include librarians, teacher training, curriculum development, special education directors, and instruction-related technology services, as well as other spending that is supported or that is focused on supporting instruction. These three areas in total, as you will see on a future slide, make up the classroom spending shown on the report. Non-classroom operational spending covers spending in the areas of administration, plan operations, food service, and transportation. A description of each is shown on the slide. Non-operational spending includes spending to acquire capital assets such as equipment, land and buildings, as well as the associated financing costs. Also considered non-operational is civic activities such as allowing our facilities to be rented out by community groups. This slide is a screenshot from the report and shows that the district's classroom spending is 72.5%, with 58.8% of that being direct instructional expenses. As part of this report, the Auditor General's Office also places districts in a variety of peer groups for comparison. This slide shows our peer group for instructional spending. We spend more as a proportion of our spending on instruction than all but one other district in our peer group in fiscal year 2023. This slide shows a year-over-year comparison of our spending in various areas by student. You can see that spending increases from 2022 to 2023, supported by the increased funding received from the state, and that it was primarily directed towards instruction. Significant areas of increase were instruction, with moderate increases in other areas. And instruction would have increased due to raises provided, as well as increased cost of contracted employees. This report also works to provide insight into areas districts can potentially improve their efficiencies in operations by comparing spending between similar peer districts. According to the Arizona Auditor General, our administrative spending is considered very low. Our spending on maintaining our facilities is comparable, and we have less square footage per student than peer districts. Our food service spending and our spending per mile in transportation is considered comparable. We will be reviewing further our cost per rider metric. We presently believe there may have been an error in the number of riders being used in the calculation to determine our cost per rider. So we'll likely see that come back in line in next year's report. Ultimately, this report is showing that in 2023, the district operated efficiently, and that this allowed us to push as much resources into the classroom as we did. This slide shows the increase in our average teacher's salaries since 2017. The change seen in this past year was driven by turnover of experienced teachers and an increase in the percentage of our teachers in their first 3 years of teaching. This slide uses the same peer group analysis to show our average teacher pay in comparison to our peers. We are well above average for our peer group for average teacher compensation. This report also includes this summary of student achievement, which shows that Litchfield outperforms our peers and the state averages on state assessments. At this time, I'm available to answer any questions you might have.
Ms. Moran?
Yes, I would like to start by saying, although this report and the details are available publicly from the Auditor General's website, this presentation and discussion is a prime example of the transparency that this district shows when it comes to fiscal responsibility and financial leadership. So I appreciate the fact that we're having this discussion and that we're able to ask questions about these items. My first question is on the, of course, very high spending per rider. So you mentioned that we think there could be an error in this calculation. Again, for transparency's sake, do we think that the inconsistency of our transportation department over the last few years has resulted in fewer riders and thus could also be a factor in this particular inefficiency that we're seeing?
It could have been the case. I would definitely say it's likely the case, though, that inconsistency had a impact on the accuracy of the reporting of the riders for sure.
Okay.
Due to that turnover, we had individuals doing that work that didn't typically or do that work or have a background in doing that work. Whether or not it had a true decrease in ridership, I can't really say that for sure, but that could be the case as well.
Okay. So based on the changes that we've made in the leadership in the transportation department, we believe going forward, we have people doing that job that will be doing it accurately. Is that a safe
Not only will I say we have people doing that job that will do it accurately, we have better technology that'll be in place that will allow us to verify that data on an ongoing basis.
Okay, that is very good to hear. Thank you for that. My only other question you touched on, but I'd like to just elaborate on that because when we look at slide 13, which is the average teacher salary, it looks as though we are losing our edge, but really based on what you said, and my question was, why did this average teacher salary go down, compared to the state average? And my question was, is this due to a loss of tenured teachers? And it sounds like that is the same conclusion that you came to. So can you tell me more about that and why that impacts this?
Sure. So the report, I didn't include it in the slides, but there is some additional data that they added this year in terms of the report that shows the average years of experience for your teachers. And then again, your percentage of teachers in that first 3 years. And the reason that has such a significant impact on your average teacher salary is as you continue your teaching career, we do continue giving raises as we've been having these conversations. And so what tends to happen is your more experienced teachers in the perfect world retire, and you're bringing in newer teachers, new to the profession, to take their place. And those individuals are placed on the salary placement chart at less years of experience because they have less years of experience. And as they gain experience with us, their salaries will also increase, just as the teachers before them had that happen to them, just throughout our normal budget process where we do pass raises for our employees, if that makes sense.
Yes, that makes sense. I just wanted to highlight why that would be. We haven't cut anyone's salary. We're not decreasing that. It really is just the mix of people on the pay scale based on experience,
Right.
that we've lost some people with more experience who were higher on the scale. So it's bringing that average down.
That's exactly right. Yes.
Okay. The only other thing I wanted to highlight was that for me, the other good news that this report shows is that we are getting better results with better efficiency than our peer groups. So we are doing more with less. We would like to do more with more, but we will do more with less if we have to. Thanks. That's all my questions.
Ms. Clymer.
I would also like to have more to do more with, but I think we've gone over most of my questions. I just had one on slide 12 on the operational efficiency measures slide. Kim touched on the transportation, which I understand. Thank you for that explanation. In terms of food service, I know we've had a couple of increases over the last couple of years just due to hard cost of that. I see we're still in the comparable category, but a little bit higher. Is there any efficiencies we can be doing there just to make sure that we are obviously in line with hard costs, but also, everyone else must be as well. So just making sure we're not going to outpace our competition there.
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought up food service because it's interesting with this report. It truly is a school district spending report. It doesn't really look at the revenue side of the equation. And so I think we'll be having some further discussions here pretty quick around what we may need to do from a food service revenue perspective. But there certainly is some opportunity looking forward to make some changes to be more efficient with our food service operations. To your point, comparable doesn't necessarily mean good. And just because our spending is comparable doesn't necessarily mean our revenue is comparable. And food service is a unique area in school districts in that it really is a area that's designed to support itself. And so you really have to critically evaluate that. And so I do think we will be having some additional conversations in some future meetings around what we may need to do on the revenue side is as we continue forward, because My understanding of the peer data on the revenue side is we are not comparable. But there's also
And do you mean, I
potentially-
don't mean to cut you off, but do you mean by that we just have less students eating lunch than other
There's
districts?
that,
or
but there's
purchasing lunch?
also, when you look at the average of what other districts are charging for their meals that they are serving, we're on the low end of that spectrum. And so you can see where if our spending is comparable to all these other districts that are charging more, but we are charging less, your operations still may not look like you really want them to look.
Right, but keeping in mind, right, we have a district price across the board. So correct, whether you're in school A, school B, whether you're Title I, whether you're not. So those increases go across the board
Correct.
every year. So yeah, more to come. I mean, the only reason I'm just hesitant to say, yes, we can just raise prices because everyone else is, because, raising 50 cents a meal is impactful to parents that their children buy lunch every day. So, on some campuses, it might not be felt that much, but on others, it could be extremely impactful. So, interesting, more details to come, but thank you.
I didn't have any questions, but I did want to highlight the very low on our admin costs, because that's kind of what school districts get beat up for all the time, is all the money is going to admin. You guys are giving all this money to admin. Why are you doing that? We are not. This report is very clear. We are very low in our admin costs. We appreciate all of our admin that are here and doing their jobs, and think you guys are fantastic. But just so the community is aware and looks at this again and again and sees we are very low in our admin costs. We are being very fiscally responsible and making sure that every dollar possible can go into the classrooms. That's my only comment. Thank you very much for this presentation, CFO Vaughn.
Thank you.
That concludes all of our items on the agenda for tonight, and Mr. Owens is not able to join us tonight, so I need a motion from someone else.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
I will second.
Having a motion from Ms. Clymer and a second from Ms. Moran, I will call for the vote. Ms. Moran?
Aye. Yay.
Ms.
Yes.
Clymer?
Yay.
I'm also yay. Motion passes. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.